Blue light washed the ballroom like a shallow tide. It made the chrome railings gleam and the white tablecloths look cold. It slid across the wet strip of floor, where Zara had just pulled her mop, leaving a clean sheen and the faint smell of citrus and ammonia. The music had stopped, the microphones hissed, then the laughter started. First a leak at the back, then a rush. It rolled over her like air conditioning turned too low. Cups rattled in saucers. Someone clapped at the wrong time and immediately hushed. She stood by the service door with her cart and her yellow caution sign, her palm on the mop handle to stop the bucket wheels from squeaking, and she did not move. On stage, the screens pulsed with the electric blue logo of Mori Systems. The CEO, Kenji Mori, held the microphone with 2 fingers like a delicate instrument. His suit caught the light like ink. He smiled at the crowd and then tipped his chin toward Zara, as if spotting a fly in a museum. "Maybe," he said, letting the word dangle. "Our janitorial team would like to give it a try." A second wave of laughter, warmer this time. The audio spiked. Phones rose like a field of periscopes. The spotlight swept and found her gray polo, the stitched name above her heart, the bleach freckles on her forearm. The mop handle felt grainy under her fingers, damp where her glove had split at the seam. Zara didn't blink. The blue light looked different when it hit water. It broke into skin-thin shards. She watched them tremble in the shallow track she had made and breathed through her mouth until the bleach smell flattened. Kenji turned from her to the audience and back again. $800 million, he said, almost casual. That's the prize. Solve our stability problem. Take the check. He tapped the screen where lines of math scrolled in strict columns, matrix blocks, error syndrome, a chain of Greek letters like a prayer you weren't supposed to say out loud. Perhaps anyone could do it. He gestured with the mic. Perhaps anyone. The third laugh came with teeth. She felt it more than heard it. A tightening under the ribs. The quiet pressure. That means keep standing. Because everything in the room wants you shorter. A camera operator backed into her caution sign and mumbled an apology without looking. The sign rocked, the little stick figure slipping made comic by the situation. She steadied it with 2 fingers and set it straight. Her earpiece hissed. "The night supervisor. Z. Do you copy? Don't get in frame." "I'm not in frame," she said, soft, because she was exactly in frame. The mic on her collar was a dollar store thing wrapped in gray tape. Nobody would notice. Kenji paced the stage. He had the relaxed swing of a man who'd won already. "Our best have tried," he said. 5 years. Entière division. Government partners. The math resists standard correction. You can read about it in the program." Or he widened his arms. "You can see for yourselves what failure looks like." He pointed, and the house lights tilted toward her again. They were too bright, unkind. Her pupils closed like fists. Somewhere near the front, a woman's voice said, low and delighted, "God, that's mean," and her friend shushed her and kept filming. Zara slid the mop back into the bucket and heard the soft lake sound it made. Her hand shook once and stopped. She traced her thumb across the stitched letters on her shirt, found the snag where a thread had popped last week, and let the familiar hitch settle her. The equations on the screen weren't a riddle to her. Not whole, not yet. But the shape of the failure was old in her mouth. She could taste metal when she looked at certain matrices, like a penny on the tongue. It was there now, copper and childhood, and the inside of a bus handle in winter. "Maybe she can fix it with that mop," Kenji said. To the room, to the cameras, to himself. The room laughed again. The sound was a weather system, and she was under it. He wanted a story. He wanted the cutaway, the janitor, the mops, the math that didn't care. He wanted a neat joke for the evening news, the kind that cleared a throat and made the donors loosen their rings when they clapped. Zara looked down at the mop water. The blue light fractured and reassembled on its surface, a quiet galaxy spinning in a bucket. The handle left a cold line in her palm when she let it go. She stepped away from the cart. The floor was still damp in a long arc that had just the right friction for a careful walk. Her shoes were rubber-soled, scuffed white at the toes. The room seemed to inhale when she crossed the aisle between round tables. The servers froze with trays in the air. A knife chimed once against a plate and then hung, uncertain. A security guard near the stage shifted his weight, but didn't move to block her. His radio announced the time, 1942. The timestamp wedged itself in her head, because that is what timestamps do. They promise a later chain of custody if anyone ever cares to build one. She took the stairs without touching the rail. The steps were carpeted and shallow. The blue wash doubled here. A crosslight from the screen and the rig, it stung her eyes. Kenji's smile thinned. "Ma'am," he said. "Microphone down. Please return to." She held out her hand. He hesitated a fraction, then passed her the mic. His fingers were dry and warm and careful not to touch hers. The mic was heavier than she expected, dense, like a tool that could also be a weapon. The foam smelled faintly of cologne and something sweeter. Her tongue went dry. Her throat felt too small for her voice. The first breath was all it took. "My name is Zara Cole," she said. The sound carried into the blue and came back as a ghost. "I'm on nights." The crowd twitched like a net full of fish. The phones held steady. "You offered a prize," she said. "You said anyone." Kenji's jaw tightened with the almost smile men wear when they've miscalculated but refused to show it. 800 million, he said. "To anyone who solves the problem, then you'll send me the spec," she said, "and the data you used on stage, and your logs." Full chain. A laugh from somewhere, not as loud. Confused pockets of applause, like static. A woman at the press riser wrote faster. Kenji angled his body so the two of them shared the shot. "Ms. Cole," he said, "the honorific a balm and a blade. This is a research-grade challenge. We have procedures." "Good," she said. "So do I." Silence, not a restful one. The kind where everyone hears the ice crack and wonders which direction to run. She held the mic down and opened her left hand. Palm up. It steadied the tremor in her right. 30 days, she said, raising the mic again. Public verification. Independent witnesses. No NDA. Someone whistled. A cough tried to be a laugh and failed. Kenji looked to the side stage, where his general counsel stood in a dark suit, holding a thin folder like a shield. The man gave the smallest nod you could give, and still call it a gesture. Kenji faced her. "You have weekends," he asked. "Something like humor. Something like mercy." "Nights," she said. It landed and then softened the room by 2 degrees. The blue light felt less clinical. Someone near the back said, "Let her speak," and then felt stupid because she was speaking. Kenji extended his hand to take back the mic. She hesitated, then gave it up. He raised it, and his voice returned to that easy broadcast voice, measured, expensive, tuned by coaches. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we appear to have our first official challenger. Ms. Cole will be provided the full specification, an access key to the sandbox environment, and supervised review of our logs. 30 days. If she delivers a repeatable, independently verified improvement, exceeding our internal benchmark by 2 orders of magnitude, the prize is hers." He turned to her and, lower, happy. She looked at the screens. The matrices scrolled like weather maps. Her mouth tasted like pennies again. "I'll need your failure cases," she said. "Not the pretty ones." The general counsel flinched, as if she'd pulled a thread on his suit. Kenji didn't. He nodded once. We'll see you in 30 days, he said, and moved, as if to dismiss her back into a job that could be rolled away on wheels. She didn't move. The quiet in her chest wasn't bravery. It was the flat calm of a person who has run out of room and decided to build a door where there isn't one. Kenji, she said, without the mic. He heard it anyway. He turned. If I solve it, she said. You apologize on the same stage. It was not loud. It was clean. The kind of line that fits in a clip without editing. His mouth did that almost smile again, but his eyes didn't. If you solve it, he said, I'll do more than that. The audience rustled. The blue lights hummed. Somewhere, a glass tipped and rolled a precise circle and came to rest against a heel. Zara walked off the stage. She did not hurry. The mop bucket waited where she'd left it. The surface water stilled to a bright blue pane. Her reflection was an oval smudge. She set the mic. Someone had taken it. She realized her hand was empty. And she set the caution sign 2 inches to the right, so the angle matched the spill path. At the service door, she paused. The hinge squeaked. She pressed her thumb to the squeak, and the metal cooled her skin. In the corridor, the sound dampened at once. The wool walls ate applause. The air smelled like coffee, left too long on a burner. Her supervisor was halfway down with a clipboard and a look that tried to be managerial and landed on worry. You okay? He asked. Not yet, she said. He looked at her shirt, at the place where her name was stitched, crooked like a small, private joke. They're going to send something, he said. It. Security. Papers. Good, she said. Tell them chain of custody starts the second they print. He frowned, not tracking the words, tracking only tone. You're shaking. I will later, she said. She pushed the mop into the bucket, and the water moved again, catching the light that snuck through the door's porthole. Blue, cut into pieces. It gathered, made a single color, and waited. Her phone vibrated in her back pocket. Unknown number. She let it ring once, twice, then swiped. Ms. Cole, a woman said, crisp, practiced, legal. We'll need you to sign an NDA before we release documents. Zara watched the drip at the end of the mop thread itself into a line and fall. No, she said. A pause that wasn't static. I'm sorry. No NDA, she said. You want my help. We do it in the light. The line went very quiet. Somewhere in the background, keys clicked, the sound of people trying to catch up to a decision already made. We'll be in touch, the woman said. The call ended. The corridor hummed. The ballroom continued on the other side of the door. All applause and light, and the soft cruelty of an evening that will become a trending clip by morning. Zara took the caution sign and set it dead center in the open doorway, so anyone looking back would read it. The little black stick figure fell forever at the same angle. She watched the blue light spill over the sign's plastic and into the hall. It looked warmer now, almost human, almost kind, even though nothing had changed except her. Outside the loading dock, dusk had dropped to the seam where the city met the river. The air was cold. Somewhere a gull laughed like a heckler. She crossed the concrete with her cart, the wheels thumping over the same expansion joint they always thumped over, and thought of the numbers that had rolled past on the screen, the way they slid and locked, and expected you to accept their grammar. 30 days, she said to the empty dock. The mop water didn't answer. It only held the blue longer than it should have and then let it go. The envelope arrived at 02. Sherye. Night folded tight around the loading dock. Sodium lamps, painting the concrete a dirty amber. The courier wore a parka and a badge on a lanyard that flashed Maury Systems when it caught the light. He held the envelope with two hands like a Bible. You weren't allowed to open without witnesses. Sara Cole? He asked. She wiped her palms on her pants. That's me. He produced a clipboard, a single-sheet chain of custody form clipped beneath plastic. The fields were pre-filled in neat block type. Origin. Maurice's compliance. Contents. Spec PKG. QEC. Stability. Media. 1. USB 3. 1 paper binder. Cam ref. Cam. 40D. Timeout. Lingi. Sanchutsi. A blank line waited for her name. Print and sign, he said. His breath smoked. She took the pen. The barrel was cold. The cheap ink scratched. She printed Zara Cole, then signed the slanted version. Her hand made when it wasn't ready to be seen. He checked her license under the lamp, compared the photo to her face without comment, and initialed in a small, precise hand. Camera, she asked. He pointed up. The dock camera's red LED winked. Rolling. He handed her the envelope. It was thick, white, sealed with 2 strips of tamper tape that blushed pink if you breathed wrong. The seal numbers were printed in tiny black 7H 14990 amperes and 7H 14990B. She said them out loud. Once, to fix them in her head, the courier wrote them on the form and had her initial the margin. You have a good night, Miss Cole, he said, already turning. You too, she said, and listened to the echo of his boots, the soft slam of the service door, the hinge single protest before it bit down. Inside the staff lounge, the light was a mean fluorescent hum. The vending machine added a sugar smell, and the compressor's low complaint. She set the envelope on the table, took a photo of the seals, with her phone date-stamped by default. She checked the settings anyway and laid her hand flat on the paper. It was cool, stiff, heavier than it looked. Her supervisor poked his head in, eyes tired. They send you homework. Specs, she said. He nodded like he understood. He didn't. Clock out. When you need. I'll finish the mezzanine, she said. He left. The door eased shut, and the hinge gave its quiet squeak. She pressed her thumb to it without thinking, a new habit grown overnight. She peeled the tape back slow so the ink wouldn't tear. It lifted clean. Inside, a blue binder with the Maury M stamped in silver, a white USB drive sealed in a smaller bag with its own tape strip 7H14993C, and a 1-page letter on letterhead. Ms. Cole, per our agreement, enclosed please find. QEC Stability Brief. Failure Case Logs. Sandbox Access Key. Verification Protocol Public. We note your refusal to sign a non-disclosure. Our release is therefore limited to environment-restricted data. Additional requests may be directed to compliance. Respectfully, Aya Nakamura, Chief Compliance Officer. Her eyes stuck to the name. The shape of it felt careful. She slid the binder out and the USB into her palm. The plastic was warm from the room. The tamper tape left a gummy edge that picked up lint. She opened the binder. Blue tabs. Crisp paper. The executive summary was written for someone who needed to look like they understood it. The real material began 4 pages in, where the font shrank and the math returned to its own ruthless grammar. The taste in her mouth turned metallic again, like she'd bitten a coin. Parallel correction frames. Entanglement topology diagrams. A blocky graph with error rates that climbed like a stadium. The failure cases were footnoted like battlefield reports. Date, time, temperature of the cryostat, ambient humidity in the lab, which tech had signed off. She found the signatures satisfying in the same way a clean line of grout was satisfying. Somebody had cared enough to make it straight. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring once before answering. Ms. Cole. Aja Nakamura. She glanced at the letterhead. You work fast. I prefer to sleep. Aya said. Her voice was clear, unsentimental. You didn't sign our NDA. You realize that limits what we can share. You realize why I didn't sign, Zara said. She kept her voice low and even like pressing a cloth to a burn. A pause. Somewhere on Aya's end, the soft clatter of keys. The murmur of an HVAC unit tuned for rich people. We're going to follow the public protocol you insisted on, Aya said. Sandbox only. Logs anonymized. Independent verification arranged through a third party. If you request lab access, you'll be accompanied and we'll film. Film is fine, Zara said. Send the third party's name. A longer pause. The kind where people decide how much to concede. You'll meet Dr. Elias Part, Aya said. Independent contractor. We use him when we can't be accused of grading our own homework. Is he honest? He's inconvenient, Aya said. That usually reads as honest. The soda machine thunk. Someone had kicked it. Zara flipped to the verification protocol. A printed line promised that all code runs would be hashed. The SHA 256 values posted to a public ledger with timestamps. She liked the smallness of the numbers, the way they didn't care who was on camera. I'll need failure cases beyond subset A, she said. You'll need to earn them, Aya said, not unkindly. Start with what you have. Send the sandbox key electronically. Zara said, I won't insert your USB into any device I own. A breath, almost a laugh. Paranoia suits you, Ms. Cole. Check your email in 5 minutes. And what? Don't talk to press without counsel, Aya said. They'll make you smaller or larger than you are. Neither size helps. Zara thought of the ballroom, the phones like periscopes. Noted. When the call ended, the room felt colder. The vending machine hummed like a cheap organ. She took the USB out of its bag anyway, and pinned it under the binder's strap, a physical ghost of trust. She wasn't ready to exercise. Her email pinged. The access key came as a PDF with a QR code and a one-time password. The footer carried a block of legal text in graying corporate language. This message may contain confidential information, etc. She opened the PDF, printed it to paper, and wrote the time in the top corner. Lingar. Centurar. She made herself add the place. Staff. Lounge. Cam 12. At the library by dawn. The air smelled like dust and old paper and winter coats that would not dry. She took the corner table near the outlets. The librarian on duty had a mug that said, simply, books. Outside, a plow scratched past, iron on snow. A slow metal scream. She logged into a public workstation, wiped the keyboard with a packet of sanitizer from her pocket, and typed the sandbox URL by hand. The portal loaded bone white. Blue. Logo. Polite fields. She fed the one-time password to it and watched the progress bar fill like a tide. The blue on the screen was a cousin to the ballroom blue, colder, less forgiving. It reflected on her fingertips as she placed them on the keys. She requested the first failure case. The download dialog popped with a calm ding. SAN, 1 gigabyte. Estimated time, 9 minutes. She wrote the hash the system provided in the margin of her printout, copied it again on a sticky note. Then again on the back of her hand. She liked the way the numbers looked on skin, like a private tattoo she could scrub away later. At 06, Ling Si, the librarians swapped shifts. The radiator knocked once. The fluorescent over her table flickered and steadied. She fed the log into the sandbox's viewer and the graphs erupted like a heart monitor with bad news. The coherence window narrowed. The error syndromes clustered like a flock spooked into a wall. The math felt familiar, not the steps, the shape. She slid the chair back, stood, and paced once to the large window where the glass showed her a pale version of herself with the city behind. A bus hissed. The driver's arm, a shape in the rectangle of the door. She placed her palm flat on the cold glass and tasted copper again, sharp and sudden. A shadow moved in the glass. A man stood at her table, a wool coat, a mesnyabe. He set down a cardboard tray with 2 coffees. Didn't touch her thing. "Ms. Cole," he said. She turned. The man was younger than she'd expected, dark hair in need of a comb, an academic's posture made careful for the world. He held out a hand and then decided not to. "I'm Elias Park," she asked. He nodded once. "Independent contractor," he said, like it was a joke he'd heard too many times. He nudged a cup toward her. "Black. 2 sugars in case the world is terrible." She took the cup, the heat a quick bite to her fingers. "This is public," she said, glancing around at the racks of large print mysteries and a poster about tax help on Tuesdays. "That's why I'm here," he said. He slid into the opposite chair. "They'll try to move you into rooms without windows. Don't go." He leaned to look at the screen. His face didn't change, but his breathing did. He held it, let it out slow. "Subset A," he said. "They gave you the sanitized failures." "I asked for ugly," she said. Elias smiled without his eyes. "They won't give you ugly until you show them you like it." They worked. He asked small questions, the kind that shift a rock and find a spine underneath. She answered with lines drawn in the library's thin pencils, equations that felt like cutting wire with her teeth. The radiator clicked, a metronome with a cough. By mid-morning, the room smelled like paper and coffee and wet wool. At 11, Arshasan, a woman in a pink coat, tapped Zara's shoulder. "Are you the lady from the video?" she asked. Too loud for a library. A man with a phone hovered just behind her, already filming, already smiling like he owned the moment. Zara felt her back get hot. Elias's hand moved to his bag, his fingers finding a small black notebook the way some men find a knife. He stood. "Not now," he said, soft enough to be kind, hard enough to be heard. The man with the phone lowered it a fraction. "It's public," he said. "We're public, then be decent in public," Elias said. The librarian appeared like a spell. A woman in a cardigan with a spine. "No filming patrons," she said. "Policies on the wall." She pointed to a laminated sheet by the copier, with a picture of a camera and a red line through it. The man muttered and slid away. The pink coat woman squeezed Zara's arm. "You get 'em, baby," she whispered, and left a small smear of perfume in the air. When the room settled, Zara's hands shook. She placed them flat on the table until the tremor ran out of her fingers and into the wood. Elias watched her without staring. "You okay?" he asked. "Later," she said. He nodded, as if later was a place they could meet. By afternoon, they had a shape, not a solution. Not yet. A door frame. The entanglement pattern Maury used was elegant and brittle. A chandelier hung where a bridge should be. She sketched a lattice, and then sketched it again, with 2 lines moved half a unit to the left. The second drawing felt wrong in a way that might be right. Parallel correction. Elias said, "If you seed the network with a self-healing bias, you can get the errors to pull each other back in line," she said. "Or you can rip the fabric," he said. "Depends where you push." Her phone vibrated. A new email slid onto the screen, no subject. No greeting, just a single line and an attachment. "You are out of your lane." She opened the attachment. It was the screenshot of a tweet from the night before. a still of her on stage, the mop bucket ghosted in one corner. The caption, "She'll clean up, all right." Her jaw set, the taste in her mouth turned iron. She forwarded the email to herself and to an address she'd made that morning. Z. Public. Record a free service with a clumsy interface, but a decent audit trail. She wrote a single note above it. Received 14, Ling Zhou, Library Cam 3, and hit send. Who? Elias asked. Anonymous, she said. He leaned back. Good. Anonymous means they're afraid to sign. They worked until the light outside turned the color of old bruises. The library heaters fought the glass. The room thinned out, the quiet gaining weight. Zara printed 3 pages of code and wrote the hash values at the bottom with a mechanical pencil she had sharpened down to a fin. She slid the pages into a plastic sleeve, dated and initialed it, and handed it to Elias. Why me? He asked. Third party, she said. You'll mark when you received it. He uncapped his pen. The nib scratched a dry, honest sound. He wrote the time, Shitsi, Sishalu, his initials, Ep, and tucked the sleeve into his bag. They packed up. The librarian in the cardigan gave Zara a nod that had weight to it, like passing a baton in a sport that didn't exist yet. Outside, and the air bit her cheeks and turned her scarf damp where her breath hit it. Her apartment sat above a laundromat that breathed steam into the alley. The staircase light flickered blue, and then white, and then died. She climbed by memory, fingers skimming the wall's cold paint. In her room, the blue from her laptop rose like a small tide in the dim. She plugged in the binder's plastic ghost. No USB. Never the USB? And opened a blank file. The hinge of her window squeaked in the wind. She pressed her thumb to the frame to stop it. The city exhaled. Sirens cut and receded. Somewhere a neighbor laughed at a show turned too loud, then stopped, caught, embarrassed by himself. She coded until her eyes blurred. The lattice took shape, line by line, an ungainly bridge where a chandelier had hung. When the first compile ran without errors, she felt a small lift under her sternum, a breath she hadn't allowed herself since the ballroom. Her phone vibrated face down on the table. She turned it over. Access suspended. Your sandbox key has been disabled pending review. She read it twice. The blue light on her face shifted cooler, unkind. Her mouth filled with the taste of metal. Below the message, a second email arrived, older by a minute, but delayed by whatever ghosts run corporate servers. It was from Aya. Don't panic. This wasn't me. Her hands went still on the keys. The room listened with her, as if the heat pipes and the thin window glass and the breath of the laundromat below could make a decision. Something moved in the hall. A shadow pressed under her door and paused. She didn't breathe. The shadow withdrew. A footstep faded. The hinge whispered as the building settled. Zara looked at the screen until the blue swam and steadied. The lattice clung to its shape. The cursor blinked like a small animal waiting. Okay, she said to the empty room, and she began to write the part they couldn't revoke. Morning came gray and thin. Steam from the laundromat downstairs rose in slow breaths past her window, leaving the glass beaded and cold to the touch. The laptop's blue waited on the table like a small, patient tide. She cracked it open, blinked the grit from her eyes, and read the last line she'd written in the night. The lattice held, the cursor pulsed. Her phone buzzed again. Access suspended. Your sandbox key has been disabled, pending review. Under it, Aya's second message, bare and precise. Wasn't me. Call when you're somewhere loud. Zara, dressed in the clothes that made her invisible dark sweatshirt, cap, the same sneakers that squeaked if you breathed wrong on linoleum. She slid the blue binder into a tote, taped shut with packing tape, She ran twice around, so the edges kissed. On the tote's flap she wrote the time. Lingba. Surar. The letters looked steady. Her hands weren't outside. The air smelled like detergent and wet concrete. A bus exhaled at the corner. She took the stairs 2 at a time and paused at her door until the hinge gave its small complaint. She pressed her thumb to it, an old superstition she'd invented last night, and already believed. At the bodega, the bell clanged and a warm, sweet breath of overripe bananas met her. She bought a cheap composition notebook, a pack of gel pens, and a roll of red evidence tape meant for Christmas gifts. The man behind the counter didn't look up. The radio murmured a weather report as if from underwater. She printed chain in block letters on the first page, then walked to the post office with the tote clamped under her arm like a rib. The post office was fluorescent and slow, a hum of bodies and patients. She filled out a certified mail slip to herself at a rented box prepaid last month with quarters and a favor, and slid 3 printed hashes into the envelope with a single sheet that read, Design Notes, EP Receipt, Public Run Requests, Do Not Open. The clerk weighed it with a bored glance. The scale's red numbers clicked into place. 3 ounces. Want tracking? He asked. I want the receipt stamp, she said. He thumped the rubber stamp twice. The ink bled a little. She pocketed the stub like a passport and stepped into the street with a strange relief warming her throat. If they cut her off again, if they turned keys and dimmed screens, there would still be a record, a date, a time, a small, dumb proof. At 09, Arshatsi. She slid into a back booth at a diner where the coffee tasted like pennies and the vinyl seats stuck to your legs, even in winter. The cook's bell dinged. Someone laughed too loudly and then apologized. Aya was already there, coat folded with the care of a person who didn't spill. Her face was unreadable up close, a geometry that only settled after a long look. She had a white ceramic mug cupped in both hands, and no jewelry to catch the light. Thanks for not choosing an office, Zara said. Offices have walls, Aya said. Walls have ears. She nodded at the tote. Is that it? It's sealed, Zara said. Camera at the entrance saw me write the time. Good, Aya said. She slid her phone between the sugar caddy and the salt shaker. Screen down. For the record, I didn't authorize the suspension. Our CTO did. At 02, Wusha Joe, citing risk mitigation. His phrasing was containment of narrative. Anand. There's a narrative, Zara asked. The taste in her mouth turned metallic, quick and involuntary. Aya's mouth tightened. There always is. A waitress with pink hair poured coffee without being asked. The pot hissed. Steam fogged the small pane of glass and cleared. Zara wrapped her hands around the mug and felt the heat climb her palms. What do you need? Ija asked. Independent compute. Zara said. Something I can run without your keys. A room with windows. A camera I can point myself. Aya's eyes flicked once to the pocket of her coat. She pulled a folded sheet free and slid it across the table. It was a printed email with timestamps and headers intact. At the top, from Voss, Kellan. The subject line, QEC storyline. The body was tidy bullets. Suspend external access. Pending PR alignment. Advise CCO to limit release to sanitized subset. Coordinate with security. Asset retrieval. Aya tapped the third bullet. They're coming for your paper, she said, and whatever else we gave you. Who? Contract security. Aya said. They carry badges and a smile. It's legal enough to look polite and rude enough to look illegal. Zara heard the hinge in her head. The squeak. The pause. How long? An hour. Maybe 2, Aya said. I bought you one by asking for authorization forms and policy citations. It won't hold. Why help me? Zara asked. She didn't make it sweet. Aya stirred her coffee 3 times and set the spoon on a napkin. Because I followed the rules. And the rules brought me to the edge of something true, she said. If we bury it to protect a quarter, I'll be the person who did that. I'd like to be someone else. Elias slid into the booth as if he'd been there the whole time. He had a scarf looped once and a notebook already open. Security's at the lobby of your building, he said. I took the back stairs and saw the van. Blue. Clean. How? Zara asked. I enjoy the world, he said, dry as the toast cooling on the plate between them. He placed a small silver bag on the table. Faraday sleeve. Put your phone in. She did. The diner quieted around the sudden lack of notifications the way a room settles after a TV clicks off. A light snow began outside. Soft and serious. We can go to CityTech, Elias said. The teaching lab's small, and the equipment's old, but their access is agnostic. They log door swipes and hash jobs to a public server for accreditation so the audits pass. Aya nodded. And I can't stop anyone from entering a public university. They moved. The door's bell gave a tired jangle that sounded like a coin jar. On the sidewalk, salt crunched under her shoes. She kept the tote tight against her hip, and her mouth closed against the metal taste that wanted to climb. At CityTech, the security desk sat behind glass, scarred by keys and time. A sign-in sheet waited on a clipboard, with a pen on a string. She wrote her name and the time, Stilus Firm. The guard gray sweater vest, wedding ring that had seen better soap, checked her ID, and flicked his eyes at the wall camera before handing back a visitor sticker. You going to the quantum closet? He asked. You have one, Elias said, almost smiling. Broom-sized. The guard said. Big dreams. Small rooms. The lab did look like a closet that had begged for mercy and been denied. 2 racks with blinking lights, a cryo unit that thrummed like a distant truck. The air smelled metallic sweet, like cold pennies under a winter sun. A student in a parka with frost on his eyebrows looked up from a terminal. You're the lady, he said, and then reddened. Sorry. Hi. Hi, Zara said. We'll log our run. He scooted. Y'all want the good chair. We'll take honesty, Elias said, pulling the bad chair to the keyboard anyway. Zara set the tote on the counter and cut the tape. She lifted the binder out, photographed the seals, wrote the time across the first page. Sure. Sashri. CityTech Lab Q12. Cam 4. Her pen scratched. The student watched, eyes wide, as if signatures were firework. Elias logged into the public console and opened a simple terminal. No slick portals, no logos, just a prompt and a blinking, stubborn cursor. Zara pulled a printed page from her bag and typed the first line by hand. Then the second. It felt like stitching skin. Precise. A little brutal. Necessary. The system returned a hash value, the way a priest returns a wafer. She wrote it 3 times in her notebook, on the whiteboard, on a post. It stuck to the rack itself. Elias called out the time, and Aya, to Zara's surprise, wrote it on her wrist with a pen. Shuri, Wushaba. Ink blue on skin. Run 1, Elias said. Public Q. A progress bar blinked alive. The student took a step back, as if he'd asked a question in class, and the answer had been yes. At 11, Ling C. The lab door opened without a knock. 2 men with contractor badges stepped in, posture rehearsed, coats too thin for the snow and too expensive for the room. One smiled like he'd practiced in a mirror. The other smiled like he didn't know how. Ms. Cole. Mirror, Smile asked. Public lab, Elias said, not looking away from the screen. Appointments at the door. We're here to retrieve proprietary materials, the other said. He tapped his badge with one finger. Mori Systems Security. Aja turned, hands empty and open. On what authority? She asked. Asset protection. Mirror Smile said. Read your email. I did. Aya said. It didn't include a court order. Silence. The hum of the cryo unit thickened. Zara felt the taste of metal return, sharp under her tongue. We can make a call. Not sure how to smile, said. Please do. Aya said. She took her phone from the table, turned it face up, and set it between them. We'll wait. Zara stepped sideways, so her body was between the men and the binder. She didn't look at them. She watched the progress bar inch forward, blue squares filling a gray outline one by one, each pixel a breath. The student cleared his throat. We have a rule, he said to the room at large, voice shaking. No touching equipment, unless you sign the incident log. Mirror Smile looked at him with a blank that wasn't empty, the kind of look men reserve for people who shouldn't be there, and somehow are. You're doing asset protection in a broom closet, Elias said. He didn't lift his eyes from the monitor. You hear yourself. Not sure. Cough. Mirror Smile made the call. He turned away and murmured into his phone, with his back half turned, the way people do when they want to look private and still be seen. The bar hit 100%. The console chimed. The hash appeared, clean black on gray. Zara wrote it before she read, hand moving on a memory that had become muscle. Elias hit the key that published it to the university's audit ledger, a small ritual with a public consequence. Run 2, he said. Aya placed her palm flat on the bench. Her breath fogged once and vanished. We're done here, she said to the men, not unkind. We won't be when you have a warrant. Mirror Smile pocketed his phone. He studied Aya as if weighing a cost. We'll be back, he said. You always are, Elias said. Dry. Again, but the humor fell on the floor and didn't bounce. They left. The door closed. The hinge protested, and then held. Zara didn't realize she'd been clenching her jaw until the muscle loosened and her teeth stopped aching. The taste receded. The blue on the monitor warmed by a fraction, as if it had decided to be on her side for 1 minute only. They ran 3 more tests. They logged each with mechanical grace. The student signed as witness, letters careful and proud. A clock above the whiteboard ticked with the indifferent honesty of old plastic. When they stepped back into the hallway, the snow had turned serious. It made the fluorescent light at the end of the corridor look blue cold and far. Aya pulled her coat tight and handed Zara a new envelope, thin, unmarked. What's this? Zara asked. Internal memo, Aya said. Draft, not yet circulated. It ties suspension to evaluation call this afternoon. If the breakthrough is verified, a deal moves. If not, shelve and spin. Containment of narrative again. Zara slid the paper into her tote. She didn't say thank you. The word felt too small for what Aya had risked, and too large for a hallway. They reached the lobby. The guard looked up and gave a nod that felt like a small, unspoken oath. Outside, the street had gone soft with white. Cars moved as if thinking about it. Elias fixed his scarf. You should stay with someone tonight, he said. Someone, she asked. Anyone who owns a deadbolt, he said. Or he hesitated, then produced a key on a plain ring. My place, 3rd floor walk-up. The hinge squeaks like a truth. She almost laughed. It came out like breath. I have a hinge, she said. Keep it, he said. Her phone buzzed in the silver bag, frantic, like a trapped fly. She took it out. A new message. No greeting. Check the alley behind your building. A photo bloomed on the screen. Blue light. Snow, the back door to her place. The wood had been split around the lock. The hinge hung at a wrong angle, mouth open in a silent, stupid O. The taste returned all at once, copper bright. The snow kept falling. The city didn't care. The blue of the screen lit her face and made her look like someone else. Snow stitched the block shut, soft and mean. Sirens bled thin through it. A distant ribbon. Zara stood across the street from her building, with the tote under her coat and the photo bright on her screen. Splintered jam, bent brass, a hinge gaping like a yawn it couldn't finish. "Don't touch the door," Elias said. He held his scarf over his mouth like a surgeon. "We document." She nodded. She slid her phone into video and walked the last 20 feet slow, framing edges, the churned-up slush, the footprint half-printed on the mat. The camera caught everything dumb and obvious. Pile of wood, dark metal, an apology of caution tape fluttering from a neighbor's kid's bike up the alley. She said the time out loud, 11:23. The back entrance smelled like wet drywall and old onions from somebody's stew. She eased her weight onto the least broken part of the jam and peered in. The light in the hallway flickered as if it had a stutter. Paint dust lay on the floor like stale sugar. "Call it in," Elias said. She dialed. The operator's voice was calm honey. "Is the intruder still there?" "No." "Any weapons?" "No." "Stay outside." "Officers en route." She filmed a slow pan of the alley, then the hinge, then hair boots. A small thing, but it put her in the frame. She sealed the video by saying her full name and the address. It felt theatrical and necessary. 2 patrol cars nosed in from opposite ends and made a V in the snow. Officers moved with that mix of caution and boredom you only see at 3 a.m. or noon in January. Bodycam red eyes winked. "Ma'am." The senior one, a woman with creases at the corners of her eyes and a winter hat that had lost its fluff, touched 2 fingers to her chest. "Officer Quinn, you made the call." "Yes." Zara held out her ID and kept her other hand visible by instinct. "Back door forced." "I didn't go in." Quinn bent to look at the hinge. "Not touching. Posture neat." "You did right," she said. "We clear first." They went in with guns low. The sound of their boots on the stairs came up through the banister like a pulse. Zara breathed through her mouth. The cold bit the back of her throat and made each breath taste like pennies. Quinn came back after a minute. "No one inside," she said. "Door to your unit's open. We do a sweep. Then you walk through with us for inventory." She glanced at Elias. "He your +1. He's my friend." Zara said. "He waits in the hall." Quinn said. "No sting in it. Policy." Inside, the heat had died or been killed. Cold held the rooms the way grief does quietly, without asking permission. The living room's window was open a thumb's width. Snow had blown in and salted the floorboards. Her printer lay on its face. Her mattress had been lifted and dropped. The sheet had ripped where the corner snagged a nail. A coffee mug lay on its side in the sink, a chipped halo of brown staining the porcelain like old news. Her desk had been treated with care and then violence. Drawers pulled, then dumped. The laptop she'd nursed for years was gone. A surge protector dangled like a line without a fish. Quinn's partner Bates, young, red nose, ears going raw in the cold, pointed up at the smoke detector. "See that?" he said. Zara did. The plastic didn't match. Cream where it should be white. Elias leaned in just far enough and whistled through his teeth. "Camera," he said. Quinn didn't look surprised. She pulled a small evidence kit from her belt, snapped on gloves, and slid a paper bag over the detector with the slow tenderness you give a cake you don't trust. "Bag 19, she said to Bates, who wrote the number on a sticker and affixed it clean. Quinn read it out loud with the time. Bodycams blinked. a tape recorder no one asked for anymore. They moved room by room. Zara kept her hands to herself and her eyes hard. On the bookshelf where she kept the few things she hadn't had to sell, a small music box sat crooked, the lid twisted at a wrong angle. She knew before she touched it that the hinge was broken. The cherry wood was scarred down one side. A clean argent gouge. She slid one finger under the lid and lifted it anyway. The ballerina inside tried to turn. The song came out wrong, a warble that lasted 3 notes and died. Her throat closed. "Anything missing?" Quinn asked. "It's missing music," Elias said under his breath. Zara surprised herself by not hitting him or crying. "Laptop's gone," she said. "The paper they wanted, I took with me." "The paper?" Quinn asked, writing on a small, stiff pad. "Research notes." Zara said she kept it bland. Bates took photos. The flash popped and made the room brighter for half a second, and darker after. They found a small black rectangle under the couch. Bates nudged it with his pen and then bagged it. Another camera, or a sensor, or a clever piece of nothing meant to make her doubt everything. The pantry had been turned. Cans everywhere. A bag of rice exploded like sand on wood. The microwave door was ajar. The bathroom cabinet stood open and politely empty. Quinn gave her a case number on a small card. The ink bled a little. The laminate had air bubbles like trapped ghosts. "Property crimes will follow up," she said. "Detective Sandoval is good, even when she looks tired." "Do you get a lot of these?" Zara asked. She wasn't sure which word break-ins, cámaras, or months like this she meant and didn't clarify. "Enough," Quinn said. She looked around Zara's place like it was a story she'd read before and still didn't like. "Document everything you find missing today and anything else later. Emails on the back. Keep receipts. If you find additional devices, don't touch them. Photos first. Bag with paper, not plastic. Plastic makes them sweat." Quinn paused, eyes landing on the music box. "You want us to bag that?" she asked, gentle now. "No," Zara said. The word came out small. "That one's mine." Elias stood in the doorway like a witness. The snow outside kept falling. An indifferent metronome. After the officers left, they did their own scene. Elias made a list on legal paper with a blunt pencil. Zara brought her certified mail stub from her coat and set it on the table next to a stack of swollen bills. She added the CityTech hashes on a post-it and took a photo of the cluster, her hand in the frame, with her watch showing the time. "Face it forward. Time it twice." Aya's name lit her phone. The text was sparse. "Board moved the valuation call to noon. Voss is framing this as theft. PR has drafts." Zara typed, then deleted, then typed again. "They broke my door. They broke my mother's music box." A minute, then, "I know." 3 dots hovered and blinked, then died. Silence filled the room, not empty, full of what didn't get said. Elias found a sliver of plastic sewn into the tote's seam. He held it with tweezers like a tick. "Tracker," he said. "Cheap, ubiquitous." "How long?" she asked. "Long enough to make you tired," he said. He dropped it into a glass jar and screwed the lid down too tight. They ate nothing. They talked less. He pulled her a coat from the closet that smelled faintly of cedar and city rain, and she put it on because decisions had to be small and clear now. He tucked the binder back under his arm, and he didn't ask if she trusted him. On the way out, she stopped and turned the music box's key 3 half turns. The hinge scraped a complaint that sounded like breath under a door. When she let go, the ballerina tried again and failed again. The lid trembled in her hand. "Leave it," Elias said. "Leaving is all I've done," she said. "They locked what could be locked. They taped what couldn't." Zara wrote the time on the tape in block letters. The numbers looked like someone else's handwriting. Elias's building had stairs too narrow for moving furniture, the kind that force you to learn balance. The third-floor landing had a plant that shouldn't have been alive and was inside. His apartment was warm in the cheap way, radiators working hard, windows sweating a little, cooking smells, saying somebody tried earlier. He had books in stacks and a desk at the window and a kettle that needed descaling. He put water on anyway. It steamed with a small, righteous hiss. "Showers down the hall if you want," he said. "Door sticks. Ignore it. It's the building being theatrical." She nodded. She washed her hands for longer than made sense. The soap smelled like eucalyptus and mint. Clean and a little medicinal. When she came back, there were 2 mugs on the table and a legal pad with 3 columns. Timeline, evidence, risk. He'd written dates and times. In her spot, he'd left the pen. It was heavy and warm where his fingers had been. Her phone vibrated. New email. Subject, cease and desist. She opened it and read the first line twice. Maury Systems, alleging misappropriation of proprietary information, demanding return of all materials, threatening injunctive relief. The letterhead was expensive, the tone dry enough to powder your tongue. At the bottom, a signature she recognized. Voss, no lawyer yet, a man impatient to be obeyed. She forwarded it to Aya without a note. Then she hit record on her phone and read the entire thing out loud. Slow, clear. The way you would for a deposition. At the end, she said the date and time and place. She took a picture of the screen with Elias's wall clock behind it. The clock said 12. Ling Si. Its second hand looked like it was considering taking a day off and going to the movies. Elias slid a folded map across the table. Tomorrow, he said. 2 stops. First, Sandoval. We give property crimes a clean chain. Second, the University Ledger Office. We notarize the hashes. They still do that, like it's 1,989. Why? She asked. Her head felt like it had stripes on it. Red for anger, blue for cold, white for fear. Because paperwork is a religion, he said. And you don't win by faith alone. She drank the tea and tasted nothing for a long time. And then, faintly, lemon. The heat came back to her hands and stuck. She tried sleep and failed. She drifted, caught, drifted again. At 3 in the morning, Aya texted without preface. Internal vote split. One director flipped after your break-in hit the watch commander's blotter. They don't want the optics. Zara exhaled a laugh that wasn't a laugh. Optics. A word that covered more sins than confession. Voss won't stop. Aya wrote, he'll speed up. Brace. Zara put the phone face down on the table and watched the reflection in the window anyway. Snow fell, somewhere far off. A plow made a low animal sound and pushed weight. On the shelf above Elias's desk, a small, brass hinge lay by itself, 2 leaves open. Nothing. An extra he'd forgotten to put away, or a piece left from a repair with no future. She reached up and pressed the leaves together. They met without closing. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. No words, just a live location in a blue bubble she hadn't asked to share with anyone. A dot pulsed on the map near her building. It moved a little, stopped, moved again. Patient. She watched it until the tea went cold, and the line of her jaw ached. The blue dot moved when she breathed. Morning came dull and pewter, the kind of light that flattens a city to cardboard. The sidewalks hissed under salt. Zara stood outside the precinct with a grocery bag, tucked like contraband against her ribs. Paper, not plastic, because Quinn had said so. The station door's top hinge screamed when Elias pulled it. Metal on metal, a wound with a voice. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and hand sanitizer. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead. Relentless. A bulletin board sagged with photocopied faces, ink gone to a soft violet. Elias signed them in. The pen dragged on a strip of duct tape someone had used to keep the clipboard from wandering. A guard with a paperback held up a palm without looking up. No filming past the desk. We're not, Elias said. He wasn't. He never pushed the wrong rule first. Detective Sandoval met them at a glass door with a keycard and a tired smile that didn't apologize. Mid-40s, hair in a quick bun, blazer with a cookie crumb on the lapel. Ms. Kareem, she said. Mr. Pierce. Come on. Her office was 2 chairs, 1 desk. A calendar permanently stuck in June because the pushpin had snapped off, and no one had replaced it. She closed the door with her hip. The hinge coughed once, and then settled like it had made up its mind. Let's do this clean, Sandoval said. She pulled a fresh evidence log from a drawer and flattened it with her palm. Start with the bag. Zara set the grocery bag down. Paper rasped. She named each item before she let go, as if the objects might forget themselves without it. 1 modified smoke detector, bagged by Officer Quinn, tagged 19. 1 micro camera recovered from beneath the couch, bagged at scene. 1 tracker recovered from tote seam, placed by me in a glass jar at 0921. Here to transfer, Sandoval wrote while she spoke, the letters square and legible, a teacher's daughter hand. She slid the chain of custody form over, initial next to each, and add where they were physically stored between discovery and now. Zara wrote the words like a spell. Yaron table, apartment of Elias Pierce. Constant line of sight. The letters had edges today. She felt them in her wrist. Sandoval lifted the smoke detector bag like it might bite. Your building super didn't install this, she said. Not a question. No, Zara said. Sandoval nodded like she'd been hoping for a fiction and got fact instead. I'll send it to the lab, she said. We'll pull a manufacturer, maybe a batch number. Cameras can give us more if they're sloppy. If we get prints, I'll retire early. Elias snorted. Retire on what? Fame? On the joy of being done, Sandoval said. Dry. Not unkind. She flipped the evidence log to a second page and slid a small envelope out. Brown with a blue security inside. And this came in first thing, she said. Subpoena from Maury's counsel for any statements you made to us. Standing order. They filed it at 8:02 a.m. My captain loves the weight of paper. Can they do that? Zara asked, though she knew the answer. The law didn't care about feelings until it did. They can try, Sandoval said. We haven't complied. We won't without a judicial review. You can expect motion practice. Their lawyer's name is on the bottom. She tapped it with her nail. I've seen him before. Likes to talk like he's singing. Voss's name glinted in the ink like a fish at the surface. Sandoval rubbed her temples with 2 fingers. Look, she said. Off the record for 10 seconds. Someone from your old shop called my captain last night. Asked about patrol priorities on your block. Asked about sensitive business assets. That's not crime prevention. That's choreography. Who? Elias asked. Sandoval's look said, you know better. And I can't at the same time. You didn't hear it from me, she said. But if you see patrol cars being elsewhere when you need them, that's not an accident. We'll do our best to be louder than the phone calls. She had them sign the form. Then she signed with a firm, decisive flourish. She sealed the camera in a larger bag and wrote the date and time on the sticker. If you get any more packages, she said, call me. Don't open them. Photograph. Document. I know you know the drill. Sara nodded. She did. Knowledge didn't keep your door from splitting like cheap bread. On the way out, an officer with a crew cut looked up from his screen and let his eyes run over Zara's coat, her shoes, her hair that she hadn't had time to tame, not leering, cataloging, dismissing, assigning her a place. She kept her spine where it belonged and looked past him at the vending machine with the bag of chips perpetually stuck between coils. The hinge on the coin return was bent. It still worked if you pushed it with the heel of your hand. Outside, the air shot. Sun turned the snow crust to glass and threw light back at the city like a dare. Elias squinted and pulled his scarf higher. "Ledger office?" he asked. "Ledger office," she said. The university looked hungover from money old stone wearing new glass like a borrowed jacket. The registrar's building had a lobby with a marble floor that ticked when you walked. The woman at the notary window had nails like red knives and a lanyard heavy with keys. "Next," she said to nobody, because she controlled the line's reality. Zara slid the folder through the slot. The hashes sat on top. She'd printed them in 12-point Courier and dotted the I's with a dot that could be seen across a room. Behind, copies of the certified mail receipt, the case number card, a still of the camera bag with Quinn's tag, a photo of her watch at 12:07. With the email open, the notary read fast and well, lips moving a little. "Purpose?" she asked. "Verification of authorship and timestamp," Zara said. If challenged, the notary pursed her mouth and slid a blue book out from under the counter. The cover had a hinge like an old knee, cracked white along the leather. She inked the stamp and pressed. The thunk was satisfying, like an old heart finding rhythm. "Sign there," she said without looking up. "Full name. Don't leave the middle initial sad." Zara signed. The pen stuck and then flowed. The stamp's impression came up clean. The notary added a date next to it and used a steel embosser that bit the page with a quiet, certain bite. "There," she said. "Now you have one more ghost on your side." "I'll take all of them," Zara said. A security guard ambled over with a coffee, took in the scene. Brown woman, older white man, stack of papers, and smiled without smiling. "You two okay?" he asked. The question lived between courtesy and suspicion. "We're great," Elias said. "We're paying money to make paper heavier. America's favorite pastime." The guard barked a laugh. "Ain't that the truth?" he said, and strolled away, weight on his heels, radio crackling like static rain. They stepped back into a day grown sharper. The sun had decided to show up. It changed nothing and everything at once. Aya called when they were halfway to the corner. The traffic noise behind her was a busy lie. "Board split down the middle," she said. Voss leaned on the two with the biggest government contracts. "He's selling this as national interest." "Don't make me say how gross that is." "Say it," Elias said. He put her on speaker and held the phone flat in his palm like a saucer. "It's gross," she said, and let out a breath. "Also, he floated a settlement to shut you up. NDI. Neen figures. A press release about innovation pipeline alignment. 0. Zara felt her jaw. It had turned itself to granite sometime after dawn. "No," she said. Small word. "Big weight. I told him you'd say that," Aya said. He said, "Everyone says that until they see the number." I said, "Some people mean it." He said you'd regret it when he counters with litigation. He already did. Elias said, "We got the letter." "Of course you did," Aya said. "Listen, this part is not mine to share, but I'm sharing it. He met with Sid last night, off-site, late. He wants to deputize this as espionage. It makes a better story and a meaner hammer." Zara stood still in the alley between buildings. The light changed there, softer and smoke. She could smell grease from a kitchen vent and laundry soap from somewhere above them. Two clean and dirty truths braided. "He won't get there," Aya said. Softer, but he'll file the form to wave around. You need to move your mother out of the line of sight. Today. I will, Zara said. The words made her fingers cold. Also, Zara. Aya's voice did something it hadn't, wavered. My vote gets me fired. If this tips, and I'm suddenly seeking new opportunities, don't waste pity on me. I chose. You weren't ever neutral, Elias said. It looks good on you. Aya made a noise that could have been a laugh, or could have been the kind of cry you do with your teeth shut. I have to go sell decency to wolves, she said. Text me a list of anything you want on the record in the minutes. The line went dead. Silence parked between them like a car. No one could move. They walked. The city shook the snow off its shoulders in small motions. Bus brakes sighing. A delivery truck door slamming with a hollow paneled thud. A kid dragging a sled across asphalt with a squeal that stung teeth. On the corner, an electronic billboard hiccuped and restarted. The logo for Mori Systems blooming blue and white in the winter light, like something pure if you didn't know the word. Back at Elias's, she called the care facility. The receptionist put her on hold to a loop of piano that must have been written by a man in a sweater. The director came on and let his voice go low and careful when Zara said her mother's name. We can arrange a temporary respite placement, he said. We'll need a contact address, dietary notes, any medications. Bring her favorite blanket if she has one. People travel better with fabric that smells like home. Zara wrote the list. Elias packed a bag without being told 2 sweaters, one of them his, a scarf, a framed photo of Zara and her mother on a beach that could have been any beach because all you could see was light. He wrapped the frame in an old shirt with a hole in the sleeve and taped it shut like contraband. Her phone buzzed on the table, face down. The blue dot on the map had moved 3 blocks, then 2, then 1. It stopped at the corner near their building and sat there, pulsing with other people's heartbeats. She called Sandoval. He's near, she said. Keep the dot, Sandoval said. Screenshots every 5 minutes. If you can get a plate, great. If you can get a face, better. Don't be a hero. Heroes bleed on paperwork. They waited. Time stretched and thin. The radiator clicked like it was trying to learn a language. Down on the street, a delivery bicycle cut a clean S in the slush and left it wobbling. At 12:49, a gray sedan ghosted past the window. Zara stepped back from the glass by reflex, breath fogging a crescent that disappeared quickly. Elias leaned once and looked away like he'd remembered the rules. The car idled at the corner. The driver's side window slid down 2 inches. A hand came out, pale and ringed, and flicked ash into the snow without shaking. The hinge of the window made no sound at all. The sedan idled like a held breath. Zara lifted her phone, framed the plate through smeared glass, and took 3 shots. No flash. She caught the driver's sleeve charcoal wool, a flash of cufflink, and the slice of a jaw, the color of cut paper. The ash hissed in the slush and went out. She sent the photos to Sandoval, with a timestamp pulled into the frame. Shurar. Wushayi. The message bubbles chased each other and then stopped. Got them. Sit tight. That was all. Let's go. Elias said. He had the bag for her mother in his hand, and the framed photo tucked under his coat like contraband. The building's front door stuck on swollen wood. The hinge gave once, a small metal cry, and then they were in the stairwell where the bulb hummed and the paint peeled in long, soft curls. They took the back way out. The alley smelled like wet cardboard and fryer oil. On the far end, the street opened to winter glare. Elias flagged a cab with 2 short chops of his hand. The driver looked at their faces, at the bag, and popped the trunk without asking questions. He didn't need answers to. At Maple Grove, the heat was turned up 1 notch too high, and smelled faintly of lemon, disinfectant, and boiled air. A television in the lounge played a game show with the sound off. The contestants' mouths made joyful O's at nothing. A volunteer taped paper snowflakes to the window with strips of blue painter's tape that folded and refolded on itself like it couldn't decide. Patricia was in a cardigan with applique leaves, the one Zara had bought second-hand, because it felt like a hand. She looked smaller in the chair than she did in Zara's head, but her eyes were a whole sky. "Is it time?" she asked, and didn't look scared. "It's time," Zara said. She knelt beside the chair, took her mother's wrist, and felt the slow river there. A few days in a Keter place, new wallpaper, same tea, the nurse on duty, K. Jensen. Badge printed in black block had the release folder open on a clipboard. She pointed with a capped pen at lines highlighted in pale green. "Meds documented," she said. "Last dose 1200. Here's the MAR printout. We've sealed the pill boxes. You'll sign the seal here and here. If any seal breaks in transit, text this number." She circled a number with a quick, sure motion and wrote the time next to it. Shasan. Arshurar. The circles looked like rings left by coffee cups. Zara signed. The carbon sheets bled blue onto her fingers. She shook her hand once, and it left a faint crescent on her palm. An accidental stamp. "We're not going far," she said. "To the room more than anyone. Just around a corner you can't see." They bundled Patricia into Elias's coat, even though it was too big. He folded the sleeves back to her wrists and smoothed them like a ritual. The aide brought the favorite blanket gingham, soft as a story, and rolled it tight into the bag. "Text when you land," the aide said. "I'll mark it on her chart." Outside, the cold took their cheeks and made them honest. Elias set the walker in the trunk, and the cab swallowed them all. Old upholstery breathing up a ghost of cigarette. The driver's radio crackled. Someone joked about a snowplow doing ballet. Patricia watched the city through the fog her breath made on the glass. "They planted a new elm at Whitman," she said, "as if the city were a single yard. They shouldn't. The roots lift sidewalks." "Noted," Elias said. "I'll email the tree." A small, unexpected smile found her mouth. They left her at a quiet brownstone run by a church, no sign, just a bell. You had to pull gently to make it sing. The woman at the door had a clipboard and hands that looked like they had turned a lot of beds. "We do first names here," she said. "Welcome, Patricia." She scanned the seals on the pillboxes, read the numbers off, and had Zara read them back. A call and response that felt like a prayer. Chain of custody for pills. For peace. When it was done, Zara pressed her lips to her mother's hair and felt the warmth there. Patricia patted her cheek. "Go, finish the thing," she said. "I'll finish my tea." Back on the sidewalk, Zara's phone buzzed twice. Aya. Emergency hearing at 3. Voss filed for a temporary gag and preservation. They drew Judge Klein. "Bring your cleanest shirt and your meanest calm." Courthouse. Zara said. Elias didn't even nod. He just raised his arm. A cab swerved like it had been waiting. The courthouse metal detector beeped for a woman with too many bracelets. The deputy held out a gray plastic bin with the patience of bedrock. Zara slipped her phone, keys, and pen into a separate tray. The pen rolled and hit the side with a hollow click. The deputy watched the trays go through with eyelids at half-mast, and the kind of attention that catches everything. Upstairs, the hallway smelled like old paper and new toner. The varnish on the benches had gone satiny where years of coats had polished it without meaning to. Voss was already there, leaning against a marble pillar like he'd paid to have it placed. His tie was a perfect navy. His hair didn't move when he did. When he saw them, his mouth made something like a greeting, and then chose not to speak. Aya stepped out of a side door with a stack of folders pressed to her chest like a shield. She had on flats instead of her usual heels. A small rebellion. Judge is on time, she said. She does 5-minute corners. Don't try to sermon. I don't sermon. Zara said. You breathe poems under pressure. Aya said. I love them. Judge don't. Klein's courtroom was clean lines and clocks set to the same minute. The seal on the wall watched without approving. Klein walked in without flourish and sat as if the chair owed her rent. She looked at Voss first, which was fair. He had the motion. Mr. Voss, she said, I've read your papers. They're heavy. Voss smiled with his eyes, not his mouth. Thank you, Your Honor. It wasn't a compliment, Klein said. Ms. Karim, I've read your opposition. It's lighter. That was... Voss put a hand on the table where everyone could see it. We're asking for a narrowly tailored temporary restraint to prevent irreparable harm to my client's trade secrets. He said, we're not trying to stop journalism. We're trying to stop theft. You filed a police report alleging theft? Klein asked. We have engaged with appropriate authorities, Voss said. He didn't say yes. Klein heard it anyway. He talked for 4 minutes and said a lot without saying the one thing. He showed 2 glossy exhibits, screenshots of Zara's hash ledger public, because she'd filed it as proof, and a copy of a board memo with lines blacked out like missing teeth. He said the words, national interest and innovation, ecosystem and fiduciary duty. He said espionage and let it sit. A long, slow drop into the room. Klein turned to Sandoval in the second row. Detective, she said, are you in possession of any items seized from Ms. Karim's residence? 3 devices submitted by complainant, Sandoval said. Documented. Non-destructive analysis pending. No warrant executed. No seizure by us beyond voluntary transfer. Good, Klein said, as if she meant the word in its dictionary sense. Mr. Voss, if you want to talk espionage, do it somewhere with a flag and a seal for it. In here we talk torts and equity. Zara stood when it was time. Her voice surprised her by being where she'd left it. They're asking you to padlock air. She said, the code isn't theirs, because they wish it. The fact that it points to a public wrong doesn't make the pointing a crime. Shorter, Klein said, not unkind. Clock watching, prior restraint. Silence is more than me. Zara said, it warns anyone who sees abuse to shut up. That's the harm. To the court, to all of us. Klein's eyes moved between them like a metronome. She tapped her gavel once, not a bang. A tap. When Voss tried to rise on her sentence. Here's what we'll do, Klein said. No gag today. I'm not blindfolding the press for a private party. Preservation order. Yes, Ms. Karim. You will not delete or alter anything in your possession. You will escrow full copies with a neutral within 24 hours. I'll appoint the neutral. Mr. Voss, if you want more, you file a proper motion with law on it, not adjectives. Voss' smile didn't move. His jaw did. Once, understood. In addition, Klein said, and looked over her glasses, no contact from either party to the other outside counsel. That includes directors who play both fields. If I hear of intimidation, I will show you what I do to bullies. The hearing ended on a wooden thud. You could feel through your shoe. People stood because the judge did. In the hallway, the air changed back to courthouse. Aya leaned against the cool marble and exhaled. That's a win, she said. It's air, Elias said. We get to keep breathing it. Voss passed them without looking up. A young associate trailed him, burdened with binders and a fear of stairs. As he reached the elevator, Voss turned his head the smallest degree, almost a tick, and said to no one, watch for contempt. The elevator doors closed on the reflection of his tie. Aya touched Zara's sleeve. "He'll be back in an hour with a press leak," she said. "He'll say you're endangering national security. It's a paint he likes. The only antidote is sunlight." "I know," Zara said. The decision had been growing like a bruise since noon. By 3 it had color. "We publish." Elias tilted his head. Now, she said. "Preservation order means we can't alter. Not that we can't speak. We put the artifacts up with the hashes. Redact what risks people, not institutions. We lose bargaining power. We keep our soul." Aya's mouth did a quick, pained twist that meant good choice and hard road. "I'll meet you at your office," she said. "I'll put my name on the statement. I'm tired of pronouns that hide me." They walked out into a late afternoon that had found a color between steel and pearl. On the steps, a man with a handheld camera pretended to check his lens while pointing it at Zara's face. She gave him her left profile and nothing else. The sedan from earlier wasn't visible, but absence had a shape. Back at the office, the radiator ticked like it was agreeing. The hum of the hard drive was a low, steady throat. Zara sat and opened the repo. The files were there, patient as stones. She typed the statement with hands that didn't shake. "We are publishing the code and the documentation in full because secrecy protects power, not people. We have redacted names where safety requires. We invite scrutiny, replication, and debate. Here are the hashes, the dates, the chain. Do not ask us to be quiet. Ask why you didn't hear sooner." Elias read it once and slid it back with a finger pressed to a single word. "Change invite to welcome," he said, less soft. She changed it. Aya arrived with damp hair and eyes that had learned a new kind of dry. She added her name and title, and then, underneath it, wrote, "Director, until fire, 59 p.m. today." She looked at the clock on the microwave. Sushi. "Let me have the fun of firing myself," she said. "Now, the humor, thin. But there." Zara hovered the cursor over "Make Public." The button was blue, bright as winter sky. She thought of the notary's stamp, the sandwich of carbon, the embosser's clean bite. Paper had weight. So did this. "Ready?" Elias asked. "No," she said, and clicked. The bar ran. It didn't take long. A green check mark appeared. Cheerful. Stupid. Perfect. The link populated into the clipboard. Aya sent it to 3 reporters before Voss's email arrived. It was a PDF wrapped in a threat, wrapped in a polite greeting. She didn't open it. Elias did and said, "A writes like a dentist." Her phone lit with messages, then calls, then the calls became noise. She silenced everything but Sandoval and the church house. Sandoval texted a single word, "Nice." The church house sent a photo. Patricia in a chair with a blanket on her knees, hands wrapped around a mug that steamed. The caption read, "She says the tea is right." Zara set the phone face down and listened. The radiator ticked. The building sighed. A snowplow passed outside like a slow animal. In the distance, a siren rose and fell. It flattened against the glass and slid away. The hinge on the office window was loose. In the quiet after the click, it moved a fraction, and then was still. The inbox went feral. Subject lines stacked like a bad heartbeat, urgent. Notice. Cease. Comment. Comment. Until the preview pane froze and stuttered back to life. The office smelled like hot dust and old coffee. Outside, the snow found a rhythm against the window, wet thuds that made a soft meter. Elias ran a cable from the battery pack to the router with the careful hands of someone diffusing a grievance. "We're holding at 60%, he said. "CDN's doing the heavy lifting." Zara clicked through the repo's activity. Forks multiplied like fish. A grad student in Ohio opened an issue with a useful edge case. A woman in Bangalore posted a test harness. Someone with a cartoon avatar asked if the word ethics was performative or prose. She muted the last one and pinned a comment. Verify hashes before you talk. Here they are again. Her phone slid a banner across the top of the screen. You've been mentioned in a statement. She tapped it. Voss and Bracken had found their uppercase. We are deeply troubled by the reckless publication of sensitive intellectual property that may implicate national security and ongoing criminal investigations. It went on for 6 paragraphs and said reckless 4 times. We will pursue all lawful remedies. Paint thinner, Elias said, leaning in to read. He hopes it melts the edges. They're going to try the federal angle, Aya said. She had taken her shoes off and tucked her feet under her on the radiator cover. Her resignation email was scheduled for 4. Wusha Joe. A digital guillotine counting down. She opened a folder and slid out a printed timeline with neat notes in the margins. They'll call the Bureau. The Bureau will call the locals. Somebody will remember an election year. Somebody else will remember a donor. The phone rang with a number that said private in the kind of font that never gets good news. Zara let it go to voicemail. The transcript appeared half a beat later. This is Special Agent. The name blurred in the machine's guess. We'd like to discuss your post. Voluntary conversation preferred. Sandoval's name leaped next. He didn't text words this time. He called, talk. Zara said, you're about to get paper. He said, I'm sorry for the speed. Warrant, 2, 1 for your office data, 1 for your cloud. Signed an hour ago. Assistant DA with a federal liaison attached. I argued scope. I lost inches. She closed her eyes. The office hummed like a mouth full of bees. You serving it. I am, he said. It landed like a small sadness. Chains cleaner if I do. How long? I'm at the curb, he said, and hung up. The knock was 3 beats, not the angry kind, the practiced one that meant I'm here. I'm not here to surprise you. When he came in, his coat shined with melted snow. He put the paperwork on the table and angled it so the caption faced her. Search warrant. Time stamped sisto. Should see. Judge's signature dark and sure. I need you to read the attachments, he said. Affidavit unter seal. You'll get a redacted copy after. We'll mirror drives on site. Non-destructive. I'll log every byte I touch. Scope, Aja asked. She had her lawyer voice on, thinner and tighter than her living voice. Sandoval pointed to the lines. Devices used to create, store, or transmit the code and documentation published at 15:09 today, plus associated communications with identifiable parties A through E listed here. The names were blacked out with black, so black it drank light. It does not cover medical files or your mother's address book. I made sure. Thank you, Zara said. It came out wrong. Too soft. For the fact of it. She meant I see you. 2 techs came in behind him with pelican cases and paper shoe covers. They set up folding tables like a pop-up clinic and laid out antistatic bags, evidence tags, a stack of orange seals. The room took on a strange, sterile dignity. Elias moved the plants to the window so no one elbowed a leaf off its stem by mistake. We'll start with the tower, one tech said. She had a braid down to her shoulder blades and a voice that beat no one up. Power down. Pull the drive. Mirror to right block. You'll see the hash here. Here. And here. We'll sign together. Zara watched her fingers work. Gloves. Tape. Label. Each step announced in a quiet murmur, like calling moves in a dance. Evidence bag 1043. The text said. Western Digital 4 terabytes. Serial ending 329. Hash pre-image. She read the long line of characters out like a spell. It matched what the machine printed. They signed the line. The pen left a groove you could feel with a nail. The door opened again. The room shifted like someone had plucked a string. Voss walked in as if the hallway were his, which in some ways it was. He stopped at the threshold when he saw Sandoval, tilted his head, and offered a smile shaped like a brew. "Counsel," Ayas said, before he could speak. "You can observe from the wall. You may not interfere. Wouldn't dream of it," Voss said. He took the wall and set his leather folio on the radiator, as if it were a lectern. The text moved to the laptop bag. Zara felt heat behind her eyes at the sight of it. Stupidly, because it was just canvas and zippers, but it had traveled through cities and near misses like a small friend. They opened it. Inside, under the laptop sleeve, was the framed photograph. Elias had rescued Patricia at the county fair, in a hat too big. Zara, 20 years younger, with a mouth full of braces and a ribbon in her fist. The glass had a crack at the corner from some old indignity and a smear of something like graphite, where a thumb had brushed and left behind proof. "Personal item," the text said, and looked at Sandoval. "Not within scope," he said. "Tag, as seen, don't size it." She set it aside gently. Voss's gaze snagged on it and kept moving. Later, he would remember it and wish he hadn't. They mirrored the cloud accounts next. Sandoval read out the tokens as Zara generated them from a YubiKey she kept on a thin cord. His hand didn't shake when he wrote the last 6 digits of each one on the form. "For the record," he said, "Ms. Karim is providing access voluntarily for the limited purpose of executing this warrant." "For the record," Aya said, "we're not waiving any right to challenge scope or admissibility." "For the record," Elias said, and managed a small, dry smile. "I made coffee, and none of you are getting any." While they worked, the internet did what the internet does. A cable channel put up a split screen with Zara's high school yearbook photo on the left and the word hacktivist on the right in letters that shouted. A columnist tweeted about reckless minorities with messiah complexes. A neighbor texted a picture of 2 men in a sedan on the corner, captioned, "Friends of yours." Aya fired off a reply she deleted before sending. She went to the window and let the cold leak in a little, then shut it again to the hinge small complaint. "Ms. Karim," Voss said, as if they were in a meeting, not a search. "We could avoid weeks of theater if you simply return what you took and cooperate with an internal review." "I didn't take it," she said. "You left it on a table called public interest and assumed no one would look." "Rhetoric is not an argument," he said. "It's the only language you've taught the public to hear," she said. Sandoval cleared his throat once. "Counsel," he said, to both of them. They found other air. At 4, Wushar, Aya's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and then at Zara. "It's done," she said. Her resignation had posted to the charity's site, and her inbox filled with the exact ratio of praise and betrayal she'd predicted. She forwarded the polite fury to a folder called Museum. At 5, Cherie, the tech with the braid, sealed the last bag. "We'll leave your peripherals," she said. "You can still pretend to type. Full inventories will go to your counsel in triplicate by noon tomorrow. You'll have a chance to propose a filter team if they pull messaging. Keeps the privilege from getting footprints on it." Voss gathered his folio like it had tried to run away. "Expect a motion for injunctive relief." "First thing," he said, "Judge Klein won't save you twice." "She didn't save me once," Zara said. "She just didn't drown me for sport." He was almost at the door when he turned, a reflex he couldn't help. "You don't know the rooms you've walked into," he said. "People who smile to your face will let you burn if it keeps their hands warm. Then they can watch," she said. The hallway swallowed him in carpet and light. After they were gone, The room looked wrong. The empty space where the tower had sat felt like a pulled-toothed tongue couldn't help but go there. The hum was different. The radiator kept up its small negotiation with the winter, but the absence had a sound. Zara picked up the photograph. The crack across the corner caught the light. For a second, her fingers didn't work and the frame slipped, kissed the desk edge, and the crack lengthened with a delicate, final sound. The glass held, but barely. She set it down and pressed the heel of her hand to her eye until color bloomed in the dark. "That's our cost," she said. "Elias didn't say we'll fix it." He reached for the roll of blue painter's tape and made a small brace across the corner. "A cheap, tender splint, temporary," he said, "but real." They ate takeout that tasted like cardboard hope. Aya drafted 2 versions of a statement, one sharp, one plain, and sent the plain one because plain words punch harder when you're tired of being told you're too much. Zara typed an email to the church house. "Everything okay? Need anything?" The reply was a photo of Patricia's hand, palms up, a peppermint resting in each like 2 small planets. "We're watching the news." The caption said, "She says your hair looked good." The sky darkened as if it were tired of its own color. In the glass, their reflections found and lost themselves around the bits of tape. Somewhere, a plow-through spark. Somewhere closer, a hinge settled. On her screen, the repo lit up with a new pull request. The author had a name that read like a dare: Nora Pike. The avatar was a grayscale of a lighthouse. The code was a small, elegant fix that closed the hole that would let a corporation claim security feature where there was none. A note at the bottom said, "No attribution. Please consider this penance." Zara stared at the name. She felt the floor shift 1 degree. "Gray turns," Elias said, reading over her shoulder. "More weather. Merge it." Aya said, "Let the algorithm take the apology." Zara clicked merge. The button went green. Stupid. Perfect. Outside, the snow slowed to a sift. Inside, the tape held. The building kept breathing. The loose hinge did not move. By dawn, the snow had crusted into a brittle glaze. The courthouse steps hissed under salt. Inside, the air held the old paper smell of a used library and the metallic chill of early heat. Fluorescents flickered once, agreed to work, and settled into their high, insect hum. The door to Part 12 opened on a tired hinge that didn't squeal so much as clear its throat. Zara sat at council table with Aya and tried to make her breath match the slow blink of the exit sign. Her palms were dry. Her mouth tasted faintly of peppermint. She hadn't eaten. Elias took the row behind them with a legal pad he didn't need, the pencil unsharpened. Sandoval stood near the back in a suit that made him look like his own best witness. Voss arrived with 2 junior attorneys and a rolling briefcase that looked like it billed by the hour. He placed a leather folio on the table and lined up 3 pens by height. "Good morning," he told no one, and then told the clerk that he had an ex parte application, though here they all were. Judge Klein took the bench at 8:59 and read the case name without looking up. "Voss and Bracken Foundation versus Kareem," she said, voice flat, tone neither friend nor enemy. The courtroom wood absorbed the sound. She tapped the underside of her desk once, and a drawer answered with a soft hinge shift. "We're here on plaintiff's motion for temporary restraints and defendant's oral motion. I'm told for a protective order," she said. "I have read some of what you filed." A stack of binders sat beside her elbow like squat jurors. The top one wore a neon tab, Exhibits AM. Another had a red sticker, under seal, Counsel for Mouvant. Voss stood, buttoned, and made a small show of not checking his notes. "Your Honor, this is simple. The defendant published proprietary code tied directly to ongoing investigations and critical infrastructure She continues to incite redistribution. We ask for a narrowly tailored injunction requiring takedown and preservation pending a full hearing. Narrowly tailored, Klein repeated, dry as January. Of the whole internet, of her content, he said, and derivative forks. The internet, she said again, noted. She turned her head a fraction. Ms. Halim Ajad Rose, plaintiff seeks a prior restraint. She said, they yell national security without any credible showing and want this court to order erasure. That's not how speech works. The code in question reveals a harm to the public, not a plan to commit one. Voss slid a folder forward. Your Honor, Exhibit K, he said, sworn declaration from a former federal systems architect. It describes the catastrophic potential of exposure. Klein looked at the binder without touching it. Catastrophic is a theatrical word, she said. I'm an unfussy audience. Show me receipts. She glanced to the clerk. Mark Exhibit K as received for argument only. The clerk put a small blue sticker on the tab and wrote K in clean, teacher letters. The sound of pen on paper was a thin music. Aya moved her own folder. Defendant's Exhibit Try, she said. Commit history, with hashes, author, stamps, and public timestamps predating plaintiff's claim they began development. It's not theirs, it's ours, and ours went public yesterday because people were getting hurt. Klein took both stacks to the bench and disappeared behind them for 3 minutes that felt like an hour's left turn. The courtroom settled into its quiet beat, radiator tick, distancopier, someone's muffled cough echoing off the high plaster, and dying without a name. Voss's junior touched a phone to silence. Elias drew a square on his pad and then shaded it in, darkening the corners like a room with the lights off. Klein resurfaced. Mr. Voss, she said, your declarant claims this protocol is embedded in a federal investigative environment. He doesn't say where, when, or whether it is currently deployed. He is constrained by classification, Voss said. The words carried the confident warmth of a man standing near a fireplace he didn't own. Of course, Klein said, a little bored. Then I will need an in-camera proffer. You will have your liaison assemble a sealed declaration by noon with specificity. If I am to gag a citizen today, I require more than adjectives. Aya slid a second document forward. Defendant's Exhibit Cinq, she said. Internal memo from plaintiff, dated 6 months ago, authorizing rollouts labeled pilot without IRB clearance, redacted to preserve donor names. It speaks to motive. Voss reached before he remembered not to. Objection, he said. Hearsay and stolen. If it is what counsel claims, chain of custody is on page 1. Aya said, time-stamped receipt from an anonymous whistle channel hosted by an independent third party. Hash, verified against a second copy delivered last night to the Attorney General's intake. Her finger tapped the bottom of the page, where a series of numbers and letters ran like a whisper. Shah 256 5B7F. This isn't theater. It's evidence. Klein watched their hands, not their faces. I will admit it for the limited purpose of showing notice and content of the communication. She said, wait to be determined. She nodded toward the back. Detective Sandoval. He stepped forward, sworn in by the clerk with the patient cadence of someone who had sworn more men than he could remember. Right hand up, left hand at his side. He said, I do without ceremony. Detective, Klein said, did you execute a warrant yesterday at defendant's office? Yes, he said. The microphone made his answer sound both larger and further away than he was. Did you Zeitza devices? Mirrored drives, he said. non-destructive. We documented the process. Hash logs are attached to my return. Any evidence of planned sabotage, threats, conspiracies to disrupt infrastructure. No, he said, and a few seats shifted, as if the room itself exhaled. Only documentation of development and communication with testers. I saw no indications of intent to harm. Voss stood. Detective, he said, you are not cleared to know what qualifies as harm in this context. I know the difference between a weapon and a mirror, Sandoval said. A dry beat. The court reporter didn't move her face, but her eyes paused. Klein turned a page. Mr. Voss, if you want a TRO, you'll give me the kitchen and the recipe. Otherwise I have speech. And speech, unfashionable as it may be, still gets to breathe. She leaned back. The chair spoke to the hinge, and the hinge kept its counsel. Voss shifted. Your Honor, we ask at least for an order, preserving the status quo, he said. No further dissemination pending your review. Aya answered before the permission landed. Status quo. Now include this public scrutiny, she said. Pulling it back helps only one party. We'll stipulate to preserving local sources and not deleting communications. That's the law anyway. Klein looked at the clock. Joe, Sushati, here is what will happen, she said. By 2 p.m., plaintiff will file under seal a specific declaration identifying the systems you claim are implicated and the precise risk posed by the code. By 3, defense may respond. Also under seal. At 4, we'll reconvene. Until then, there is no gag order. Ms. Karim, you will preserve all data and not induce any third party to destroy records. If either side violates this, I will have a very unpleasant afternoon. She paused. For you, not for me. The clerk handed out a one-page form with neat checkboxes. Each time a pen hit paper, the sound gave shape to the air. When they stood to leave, the hinge at the main door gave a soft, thinking sound like it had listened and decided to hold. The hallway was louder, made of marble and shoes. Reporters had formed a soft flock near the elevators, their mics tucked at their sides like obedient dogs. Ms. Karim, are you a hero or a hacker? One called, Are you afraid? Another asked, voice human. Zara kept her head level. I'm a person, she said. I'm careful, and I'm not alone. They made it to the stairwell where the light was thinner and the concrete held the day's cold like an instrument. 2 floors down, Aya stopped and opened her tote. Inside, wrapped in her scarf, the cracked photograph waited like a small heart. The blue painter's tape held, dull against the gloss. Carry it. Aya said, I can manage without a talisman. Zara said, this isn't a talisman. Aya said, it's a fact. Her phone vibrated. A blocked number. Aya watched her thumb hover, chose, and hit speaker. A voice came through, altered by software but careful in its vowels. You're on a clock. It said, your noon will be met. What lands there will make a lie. Name. Aya said, no names. The voice said, but you've merged my code. A beat. Call this one a lighthouse. The call died with no line noise at all. Elias whistled under his breath. One note, with no tune. Gray skis. Gray help, he said. Penance. Round 2, Aya said. She took the stairs faster. Back at the office. The absence where the tower had been looked cleaner in daylight, which made it worse. The radiator put a thin heat in the room that smelled like boiled dust. The blue tape on the photo's corner had bubbled where the glass warmed under the window. Zara pressed it flat with her thumb and felt the adhesive answer back. At 11:21, a secure drop, pinged with a new file, declaration, PDF. A digital certificate sat in the corner like a wax seal. Aya printed it on the old laser that shook before it worked. Pages came out warm. The contents were spare and surgical. Dates, deployment logs, board minutes, and one paragraph that cut to bone language, authorizing suppression of detrimental disclosures to preserve donor goodwill. Exhibit B was an email from Voss, pour sentence long, instructing his team to lean on national security. It polls well. Chain, Elias asked. Digital signature verified, Aya said. Attached log shows creation at 6:44 on a machine named VP OPS no problem. File path has documents, sealed. The hash matches the string sent to the AG last night. She looked at Zara. It's real. Zara felt a heat rise that wasn't anger exactly. It was something older and cooler, like relief that someone had finally named the shape in the dark. She sent Sandoval a single line, "Check your intake at noon." He replied with a thumbs up that looked dumb on his phone and somehow right. Outside, the snow gave up and turned to mist. A protest gathered on the sidewalk like a weather front. Cardboard signs. A drum with a patient pulse. One woman in a red scarf handed out peppermints from a sandwich bag, pressing them into the hands of strangers who weren't. The candy clicked against teeth, and the sound traveled up through the glass and into the room like a quiet metronome. At 1, Wushaba, Aya filed their response under seal with a cover letter in plain, unspectacular English. She watched the progress bar move. It stopped at 98% for a petty second and then slid to done. 4 o'clock. She said, "Eat something." "I will." Sarah lied. The hallway hinge cleared its throat again when they left for court, as if to say it would be here when they return. On the street, the drum picked up a little. The signs looked bigger from ground level. Someone had drawn blue tape on a piece of poster board and written, "Hold the corner" in block letters. Zara touched the crack through glass and paper and felt the line of it like a map. The tape held. The city breathed. The hinge did not speak. The blue tape snagged on her sleeve as she stood to face the bench again. A small tug, a small hold. 4 o'clock light slid through the high windows, cold and colorless, turning the dust into snow that didn't fall. Judge Klein returned with a new folder, thicker, sealed with a red sticker and a strip of translucent tape that glowed under the fluorescence. "We are back on the record," she said. Her voice carried the weight of a door that closed gently but locked. "I have reviewed plaintiff's supplemental declaration and defendant's response. I have questions." Voss rose as if lifted by a string. "Yes, Your Honor." Klein didn't look at him. "Mr. Voss, your Exhibit K asserts deployment in a federal investigative environment. Your sealed proffer confirms instead a private platform with municipal integrations. Choose your nouns carefully in my courtroom. They're not interchangeable." Voss's mouth changed shape. "Your Honor, our partner agencies are not the federal government," she said. She laid a palm on the sealed folder. The paper sighed. "Second, your email Exhibit B to defendant's response reads, and I quote, 'lean on national security.' It polls well. Explain." Voss didn't blink. "Context. Your Honor, a public statement draft. We were concerned about panic." Aya didn't stand. "It's not panic when you call harm by its name," she said softly. Klein tapped the folder with a nail. "There will be no speeches," she said. "Only answers." She turned to Sandoval. "Detective, your office received a version of this declaration at noon." "Yes," he said. "Logged at 12. Ling San. Intake signed by Martinez. Hash matches the one filed here. Chain of custody. Sealed envelope from anonymous courier." He said. "Body cam recorded the handoff. Copy secured in evidence room. Locker 14B. Access log shows me Martinez. That's it. Klein nodded once, a short bow to the machinery that kept faith. Good. She turned back to the counsel tables. Here is my ruling for now. I will not enjoin defendant's speech. I will, however, order all parties to preserve all materials, refrain from altering repositories, and produce, under seal, a list of systems currently running the protocol at issue. Plaintiff will notify any public entities within 24 hours of this order of the potential risk identified. Failure to do so will result in sanction. Hageis found Voss sharp ones. Voss reached for a pen that wasn't there. We respectfully request a stay to consult with our... No, Klein said. She wrote something short on the order sheet and slid it to the clerk. The clerk's stamp landed with a hollow thud that felt like the start of weather. We reconvene in 2 days for an evidentiary hearing. I want sworn people, not adjectives. The hinge at the rear door cleared its throat as they filed out. In the hallway, a marshal leaned to a colleague and murmured, "It polls well," like a private joke that wasn't funny. The marble took the echo and flattened it. They reached the stairwell and the quiet that lived there. Aya checked her phone. 3 messages from unknown numbers. Subject lines like knives. One from the court's ECF. New filing, notice of manual attachment. She opened it. A scanned page blinked into being. Someone at Voss's shop had uploaded a demonstrative with a screenshot of a chat window. In the upper corner, a sliver of a desktop showed an open doc, a lease, Zara's name, Zara's address, unredacted. The silence was complete. Even the building seemed to take a breath. Elias said, "We can move you tonight." Zara felt the air thicken, the way a room feels right before a thunderclap. "It's already out," she said. The words came out steady. Her hands weren't. "We call the clerk. We demand a seal." Aya was already dialing. "Part 12 clerk." "Please," she said. "Emergency." She listened, talked low, switched lines, asked for the duty judge for administrative matters. The steps between request and response were a narrow stair you had to take at the speed it allowed. "They're pulling it now," she said at last, but Cash's copy faster than a court can blink. The answer arrived anyway. A new push alert, then a second, then a third. A blog had scraped the docket. A forum had posted. The comments multiplied like wet leaves on a windshield. Addresses grow legs on bad days. "Sandoval," Zara said, already pressing call. "I saw," he said as if he'd been watching the same screen. "Patrol car en route to your building. I'll be there in 10. Send me the docket number for the seal order." She texted him the screenshot. The blue tape in the photo in her bag stuck to her palm. Tacky with heat, hold the corner. They didn't take the elevator. The stairs went down like a funnel. At the ground floor, heat came off the protest like a low stove. Someone had a bullhorn now. Soft-voiced chants braided into the hum of traffic. A chalk drawing of a hinge and a strip of blue tape had appeared on the sidewalk. Children stepped around it like a tide pool. "Back door," Aya said. "Less crowd." They cut through a service corridor, past a mop sink that smelled like lemon and the old ghost of bleach. The exit dumped them into cold shade and the freight rumble of a passing truck. A cat watched from a loading bay, expression unreadable. They crossed to the lot where Elias had left the car nose out. At Zara's building, the first thing she saw was the dent in the mailbox. Shallow, a fist that didn't know how to hit. The second thing was the peppermint wrapper on the step. The kind the woman in the red scarf had handed out earlier. The third was the phone taped to her door. Camera dark. Someone had stuck it with blue tape. The exact shade, as if the world was mocking her motif. "Don't touch it," Sandoval said, appearing from the stairwell with 2 officers and a small evidence kit. He wore the same suit, now with a scarf. "Gloves," he told his partner. He photographed the phone in place, then around it, then the door as a whole like it was a face with a new scar. The shutter click sounded like a clock that couldn't choose a speed. Ringers, his partner said, pointing to two more phones under the stair, stuck in corners like beetles. Motion alerts probably. Sandoval snapped on nitrile. Chain starts now, he said. To them. To the room. To the camera that might be watching. Officer rages, removes device 1 at the Assizes. 43. He glanced at his watch places in evidence bag. Initial. Seal. The tape squealed. A small, bright sound in the dim hallway. He looked at Zara. This feels performative. He said, like they want you to know they can find you. They already did, she said. Her mouth tasted like aluminum. It won't change anything I say. A neighbor opened a door, 2 floors up, and stared down between the rails. You okay? The neighbor asked. Zara looked up. I'm staying somewhere else tonight, she said. If anyone asks, I'm not answering the door. The neighbor nodded. I'll water your plant, she said. It's sad when you forget. Elias made a noise that could have been a laugh. This is the most local end of the internet I've seen, he said. Aya toured the apartment with her eyes, and then with her phone, capturing the early evening light, cutting the dust at an angle that made everything look cleaner than it felt. The radiator clanked right on cue, like a percussionist who'd read the script. Pack a bag, she said. Documents. Laptop. Warm clothes. Leave the photo. She pointed to the frame on the shelf. Zara heard the instruction and the kindness under it. Leave the breakable thing in the place that knows it. She took her passport from the drawer with the takeout menus. She took the worn sweater that smelled like cedar. She took the notebook with the hand-drawn diagrams and the corner page folded twice. She left the cracked smile under the tape in the spot where morning light caught it gentle. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She answered and hit speaker. Hold the line. The voice said, same filtered tone, same careful vowels. Check the court's docket again. They're trying to replace the filing with a corrected version. The first one contains truth they didn't intend to say. We already pulled it. Aya said. Cached. Not just the scan. The voice said. The metadata. The PDF producer field. It names the workstation. Voss Sec 2. Sometimes the machine tells you the name of the hand. A click. Silence. Elias looked over her shoulder at the screen. He's right, he said. Properties. Producer. Voss Sec 2. He smiled without humor. They doxed you and themselves in one go. Self-destruction by settings. Aya said. She took a photo of the screen with her own phone. Screenshot. In case someone says it changed. Timestampsiston. Wushati. Location data on. Sandoval finished bagging the last device. He labeled each with the careful handwriting of a man who understood later fights will run the numbers. He said, find where those calls originated. They'll have bounced it 6 ways. Elias said, 6 still leaves prints. Sandoval said. He looked at Zara. You want me to post a car? No sirens. She said, no blue and red outside. That's another kind of address. He nodded. Unmarked will cruise. Call if you get even a flicker. He hesitated. You sure you want to stay in the city tonight? She's not. Aya said. She's with me. They left, as the sky turned the color of paper before ink touches it. In the car, the heater blew a smell like heated plastic and old coffee. They drove without the radio. At a red light, a cyclist tapped the trunk, a small courtesy to let them know he was there. The touch felt like a hand on the shoulder from a stranger who wanted them to live. At Aya's building, the lobby's security glass reflected their faces back at them in a cheap composite. The elevator shuddered on its way up like a thought it wasn't sure about. Inside the apartment, the first thing Zara did was set her bag down by the couch, and then stand very still for a count of 5, listening for anything that didn't belong. The city answered with its uneven choir pipes, a distant siren that wasn't for her, footsteps overhead, like a neighbor's quick heart. Aya made tea that smelled like mint and dusted sugar. She poured it into thick mugs and set one in Zara's hands. "We'll get an order sanctioning the leak," she said. "There are rules for this. There are also crowds." Zara said. The mint cut the aluminum in her mouth, and hands that don't read rules. A notification pinged. The clerk's office had sealed the attachment and posted a notice, "Administrative correction entered at 17. Shirar. The blue triangle of the file icon looked suddenly naive. Aya forwarded the order to Sandoval, to the AG intake, to herself. 2 days, she said, then we get sworn people. Zara sat on the edge of the couch and felt the frame give a little dotto wood, settling into wood. Outside, the mist turned back to snow in the streetlight, small white errors corrected by the dark. She thought of the tape holding the corner of the glass in her empty apartment. She thought of the blue strip on the sidewalk, chalked like a banner. She thought of the phone on her door, sealed now in a bag with a date, a time, a name. "Hold the corner," she said, and the evening held. The blue tape on the witness mic frayed at one edge. It clung anyway. Morning threw a hard rectangle of light across the council tables, bleaching the wood to bone while the gallery filled with coats, murmurs, the smell of wet wool and old coffee. Judge Klein entered without the bailiff's announcement. Like weather that didn't ask permission. "We're on the record for evidentiary hearing," she said. Her eyes skimmed the room, paused at each table. Then, at the box of exhibits labeled with small, careful letters. "Counsel, call your first." Aja rose. "Defense calls Detective Sandoval." He stepped into the box, as if the tiles might shift under him. Oath. Right hand. The quiet choreography of the thing. The court reporter's keys whispered like rain on a tin roof. "Detective," Aya said, "state your name and assignment." "Rafael Sandoval, Major Crimes, Digital Evidence and Chain of Custody Liaison." "Tell the court what you collected from Ms. Noor's door." A smartphone adhered with blue painter's tape, he said, glancing at the mic's frayed edge, and then back. 2 more under the stairwell. Removal at 16, 43 hours. Bagged. Sealed. Initial. Evidence log numbers 231147A through C. He slid a clear pouch across to the clerk. The sealed tape showed a signature and time that matched the tag. The plastic crinkled, loud in the hush. "Did you extract data?" "No, we're on pending. We did record external identifiers IMEI. SIM photographed lock screens. One device displayed a remote admin app queue with the label Voss Ops. Voss stood as if a string had yanked him. Objection, Foundation. Overruled, Klein said before his sentence found its last word. The label speaks for itself, and if it doesn't, you will. Aya's next move clicked like a chess piece that had waited. "Detective, you received from the court a sealed file later that day." "Yes," he said. "Administrative correction notice at 17. Shirar, I preserved the docket as rendered and its metadata as captured. SHA 256. Hash recorded in my notebook." He lifted a small black book, the kind with a fabric ribbon. "Hash begins fire Annie. Ends DOC. Matches my copy. Any significance to the PDF's producer field? It shows Voss Sec 2, he said, not looking at Voss. That is a machine name consistent with plaintiff's security operations. Aya let the point hang a breath. The gallery breathed with it. Then she moved on. "No further at this time." Voss approached with a smile too rectangular for the face it sat on. "Detective, In your experience, machine names can be spoof. Yes, Sandoval said, so can empathy. A ripple of breath. The court's closest thing to laughter, Klein's pen made a small dot on her pad. Counsel, she said. A warning without heat. Detective, Voss said, smoothing it. You have no evidence my client placed those devices. I have evidence your shop's name appears on the thing that leaked her address, he said, and 3 phones taped to her door. I'd call that a start. When he stepped down, his shoes left wet prints on the wood, like a ghost's version of a map. The next witness was a woman with a close-cut fade and a gray suit that didn't try too hard. Lorraine Chan, Director of Information Systems for the city. She laid her hand on a thin binder and looked like someone who had been asked to explain the obvious to the powerful Ms. Chan. Aya said, what is the current status of the protocol at issue? It's live in 7 municipal subsystems, Chan said. She spoke slowly. No extra words to make anything sound kinder. Traffic cameras, utility meters, 2 public Wi-Fi nodes, and a pilot in the 911 CAD feed. Integration was under a series of memoranda of understanding with the plaintiff. Were you advised of the risk raised in Ms. Noor's declaration? We were advised yesterday, after the court's order, she said. We've begun pulling API keys, rotating certs, isolating nodes, but some components require physical intervention. It's not a switch, it's drywall. Did the plaintiff notify you earlier? No, she said. And she didn't look at Voss because there was no need to. Voss tried to find ground in motion. Ms. Chan, are there any documented incidents of harm? We don't count harm by body, she said. We count by vector. A vulnerability is a door, whether someone walks through it today or tomorrow. You still built the door. Aja called Elias next. He adjusted his tie like a man checking the torque on a stubborn bolt. His laptop screen stayed shut. His memory had done the nightly work. Mr. Reyes, Aya said, you examined the plaintiff's demonstratives. Yes, including Exhibit K and the corrected Exhibit K1. Find anything curious? He smiled with no teeth. Their screenshot helpfully included a sliver of taskbar. He said, we enhanced. You can see their log aggregator Falcon Eye showing a spike at 10. Ling San. The spike corresponds to webhooks sent to a public bucket with the file name pattern heat map. We looked. The bucket had been set to public read for 27 minutes before someone noticed and toggled private. We captured access logs during the window. Who accessed the bucket? A handful of anonymous IPs, he said, and 1 authenticated session from VOSSEC2, the same machine name, time-stamped. Essay. Cherie, UTC offset -5. And the contents. User movement heat maps around a shelter, he said, voice softening. With dwell times, Klein looked up sharp. A shelter. Yes, Your Honor, he said. Women and children. The map glowed like a wound. The room tilted. The quiet opened like a trap door. Someone in the back row inhaled, as if she'd been underwater, and found the surface on accident. Voss stood in an angle that tried to look like spine. Your Honor, we object to the characterization. You can object to the sun at noon, Klein said, but it'll still be bright. Side down. Aya's last witness was not on any list. She stood from the second row, and for a heartbeat, it seemed she'd gotten up wrong, like a mistake in the choreography of seating. Mid-30s, plain navy dress, a hospital badge clipped to a cardigan. She had a small scar on her cheek that looked like a story. I'm not counsel, she said, looking to Klein as she reached the aisle. I'm a nurse. I emailed the court last night. Her voice wavered. Found a rail. We got 3 women in last week. Different nights. Same bruising around the wrist, like sip teas. They all had been at the shelter Ms. Chan mentioned. Someone knew their timings. Someone waited. I'm not saying who, I'm saying the map would have helped. Klein's jaw worked once, a muscle remembering the shape of a line. Your name, Miss Janella Rooks, she said. Haven Memorial. ER night shift. Ms. Rooks, Klein said. Softer. Thank you. Counsel, we're not going to put her through cross on this point. The court takes judicial notice of harm's proximity. In the pause that followed, Zara didn't move. Her hands were flat on the table, palms damp, fingers apart as if to cover more surface. The blue wristband that had been passed out at the door pressed against her skin. The plastic cut a small, white half-moon. When Klein finally spoke, the words were, "Weight and weather both." "Here is the order," she said. "Plaintiff will disable all instances of the protocol within 72 hours. Public entities affected will receive a full technical advisory within 6. Plaintiff will preserve all associated logs, communications, and repository histories, including, but not limited to version control, ticketing systems, CM alerts, and deployment manifests. A special master will be appointed to supervise compliance with authority to retain independent forensic analysts." Her pen paused. "All parties will cease public commentary that could be reasonably expected to expose personal data. Violation will prompt sanctions and referral." Voss lifted his chin in a way that looked like someone else's taut posture. "We intend to appeal." "Intend all you like," Klein said. "The hinge swings now." As the judge left, the room exhaled in fragments. The gallery dissolved into clusters. The smell of coffee rose as if somebody had brewed it in the back row and forgotten to share. Aya packed with precise hands. Elias looked at his notes and then didn't need them. Sandoval hovered. Not like a guard, more like a witness who didn't want to miss the part where the credits rolled over a quiet last image. They were almost to the hall when the screen above the clerk's desk flashed an update on the docket feed. A routine trickle of filings, orders, seals. Then a new line that didn't match the rhythm. Voluntary withdrawal of counsel plaintiff. Underneath, in small text, notice, internal ethics review, initiated by law firm. The entry wore a timestamp like a bruise. Shri Arshitsi. Voss's phone vibrated on the table he no longer sat at. He looked at the screen, then at no one. The color faded from the thin space between his eyes. He gathered his papers out of muscle memory, edges aligned perfectly. A man tidying the deck of a ship, already taking on water. "You okay?" Elias murmured as he passed. The dry humor earned now. "Does it poll well?" Voss asked without looking, and it might have been a joke if it hadn't been the truest thing he'd said all morning. In the hallway, the protest had grown but softened. Handmade signs rested against the wall like shields set down after a skirmish. Someone had taped a blue strip to the baseboard under the Part 12 placard. Children fingerprinted it with small dots of tempera that would never fully come out of the paint. The anonymous number pinged again. No voice this time, just a photo. A server room, blue LEDs winking in cold rows. A hand holding a card that read Master Access. A note on a yellow sticky tucked under the card. 20 minutes is enough. Aya Metzara's ace. A gift, she said, or a trap, both. Elias said, "We bring the master with us." They didn't go to the server room. They went to Lorraine Chan's office. Hands open, phones face down. The way you approach a dog that has already decided. Chan called her deputy, the special master, by speaker, the city attorney by habit. In that overheated room, smelling faintly of toner and citrus cleaner, They stood a ring around the map of their own city, red pins, blue pins, a piece of string. Chan dialed into the shelter's director. "We're cutting the feeds now," she said. "No, not a glitch. A decisión." Elias typed on a console with his hands making small staccato sounds on the keys. He read off certificate serial numbers like prayers. Revoking, Femukfura, Neophius, 10. Rolling keys out of band, he said. The console answered with lines of plain text that looked like the opposite of poetry and felt like rescue. The fans in the racks spun up, a low animal in the walls waking. The building hummed. Zara watched the cursor blink, then the logs scroll, then the line that said, "Disconnected like a pulse, returning to a sane rate." In the glass door to the hallway, she saw their reflections, tired, damp, lit by screens. Her shoulders lowered a fraction, the size of a human concession to gravity. On the way out, a janitor knelt by a scuffed threshold, pressing fresh blue tape over the edge of a rug that had been tripping people all morning. He smoothed it with his palm until the fabric lay flat. He looked up and met Zara's eyes for a second. No smile, a nod. The most local end of the internet. Outside, it had started to snow for real. The flakes were fat and few, then more, then many, melting on the warm spots, sticking where the stone held cold. People tilted their faces up like flowers testing light. 2 days ago, Zara said, almost to herself, "They taped a phone to my door." And today, Aya said, "We taped the floor." Elias shoved his hands into his pockets and looked at the courthouse as if it were a creature that got tired too. Self-destruction by settings. He said, "He'll write a memo." Zara stood still long enough to hear the city run under the weather buses. Voice, a siren moving away, always away. Then she reached into her bag and found the small roll of blue tape she'd carried without knowing why. It felt warm from her body. She tore off a strip and pressed it over a crack in the courthouse step, a thin diagonal the janitors hadn't gotten to yet. Her thumb smoothing the edge until it held. The tape held. For now, every story leaves a small light behind. This one reminds us that justice doesn't begin in a courtroom or an office. It begins in the moment someone refuses to stay silent. Zara's fight wasn't only about data or systems. It was about reclaiming the right to speak when silence has become too expensive. "The truth doesn't tremble," she said, and in those words lies a reminder that courage often looks quiet, measured, patient, but unyielding. Life is full of rooms where people try to shut the door on fairness, to convince us that keeping our heads down is safer than standing up. But safety without dignity is just another form of captivity. The story teaches that integrity isn't born from victory. It's shaped in the small, stubborn acts of resistance that no one applauds at first. Like the saying goes, real gold fears no fire. When we choose to confront the flames of power, of prejudice, of fear, we learn what we're truly made of. Maybe that's the heart of it. Systems break when we forget they're built by people, and people heal when they remember they still have a voice. If this story moved you, tell me what part stayed with you most. Have you ever witnessed or lived a quiet act of courage? Share it in the comments, or just leave a thought for those still learning to speak. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that dig beneath the surface, where resilience, justice, and hope live side by side. Wherever you are tonight, I hope you find a little peace in the noise, and a reminder that the light you hold is still enough to see by